10 Golden Age stars whose wives betrayed them. Hollywood's so-called golden era sparkled on the outside, but off-screen it hid stories darker than any noir. Behind the carefully staged smiles and glittering premieres was a tangled web of deceit that studio fixers fought to bury. Today, we're peeling back the mask to reveal one of Hollywood's most scandalous truths: the heartbreak behind its brightest leading men. These were the icons who ruled the silver screen but lost control of their own homes. The matinee idols fans worshipped, men who seemed untouchable, were often being deceived by the women beside them. These affairs weren't accidents or fleeting moments. They were cold, deliberate betrayals that broke Hollywood's biggest legends while they kept up the illusion of perfection. What you're about to hear never appeared in studio-approved memoirs. This is the unvarnished reality behind 10 Golden Age stars whose private lives shattered the fantasy they embodied on film. And the cruelest twist of all, some of them didn't learn the full truth until long after their fame had faded. 1. Humphrey Bogart, the tough guy who couldn't control the chaos at home. Before Humphrey Bogart found real peace with Lauren Bacall, Hollywood's so-called toughest leading man lived through a marriage that could have passed for one of his most tragic roles. His third wife, Mayo Methot, was infamous for her volatility, earning the nickname Sluggy for her violent outbursts during their drunken fights. While Bogey commanded the screen, his wife created her own explosions at home, and not always alone. Their Hollywood estate became notorious as Sluggy Hollow, a grim parody of Sleepy Hollow. Neighbors often heard shattering glass, screaming, and saw furniture flying through open windows. But Methot's wild jealousy, many discovered later, wasn't simply insecurity, it was projection. Sources close to the couple, from staff to next-door neighbors, whispered that Mayo had regular male visitors whenever Bogart was away filming. One delivery man in particular became a frequent guest, always appearing right after Bogey left and vanishing just before he returned. Bogart suspected what was happening, but was trapped. Men of his stature were expected to command their homes, and acknowledging his wife's cheating would have destroyed his tough guy image. Ironically, the more Mayo lashed out about imaginary flings, the more her own affairs seemed to multiply. During Casablanca, when Bogart was buried in work, her late-night visitors became almost routine. Their marriage finally collapsed in 1945 when Bogart fell deeply for his to-have and have-not co-star, Lauren Bacall. Though tabloids framed it as Bogart abandoning his unstable wife for a younger woman, insiders say it was something else entirely. He'd finally escaped years of quiet humiliation. 2. Desi Arnaz, when Lucy played the same game. When Lucille Ball decided that turnabout was fair play, America's beloved redhead proved she was as cunning as she was funny. On I Love Lucy, she and her Cuban bandleader husband, Desi Arnaz, became television's most adored couple. But behind the laugh track was a marriage drowning in infidelity, and not only from Desi. For years, Arnaz's womanizing was an open secret. His affairs were so brazen that even studio fixers couldn't keep up. From showgirls to strangers, he seemed addicted to temptation and often didn't care who noticed. Desi didn't just cheat, he did it where he knew he'd be recognized, admitted one CBS insider. It was almost as if he wanted Lucy to catch him. For decades, the story painted Lucy as the long-suffering wife, but newer accounts suggest she eventually started to even the score. Lucy's rumored affairs weren't about passion, they were a form of emotional survival. After years of humiliation, she decided if he could do it, so could she, recalled one friend. But unlike Desi's reckless escapades, Lucy was methodical and subtle. She was rumored to have quiet relationships with a few trusted colleagues, always leaving no proof. Lucy was a genius at image control, said a former studio publicist. America might forgive Desi's wandering eye, but if Lucy was ever caught, her career would have been over. What made their saga bittersweet was that beneath the betrayals, they truly loved each other. Even after their divorce in 1960, the spark between them never faded. Though they couldn't share a life anymore, they never stopped sharing a bond. A love story both too passionate and too painful to survive. 3. Clark Gable, the king who lost his crown at home. When Clark Gable and Carole Lombard returned from Arizona as newlyweds, they were Hollywood royalty, the king and his beloved queen. But behind the smiles and fanfare, Their fairy tale carried the same cracks that haunted so many Golden Age marriages. Clark Gable, the magnetic leading man who stole hearts as Rhett Butler and Gone with the Wind, reigned as Hollywood's ultimate icon. Crowned the King of Hollywood, his rugged charm made him the most sought-after actor of his generation. Yet before finding lasting joy with comedy legend Carole Lombard, Gable's earlier unions showed a man who often lost control behind closed doors. The monarch of the movies wasn't always the ruler of his home. His first two marriages, to Josephine Dillon and Maria Langham, remain the focus of fascination, largely because both women were far older than he was. Dillon by 17 years, Langham by 11. Each of them, refined and well-off, shaped the unpolished young actor into the sophisticated star audiences came to adore. Josephine treated him more like a project than a partner, said one MGM associate. She molded his voice, fixed his teeth, funded his ambitions, but also tightly managed his finances and freedom. Her authority extended far beyond mentorship, with whispers suggesting she entertained her own admirers while Gable was away. Some biographers even argue that the marriage functioned more as a career contract than a love story. There were men who'd visit Josephine whenever Clark was on set, a neighbor remembered. Whether they were just friends or something more, no one knew, but people certainly talked. Gable's next marriage to Maria Langham followed nearly the same script. Langham, another wealthy and cultured older woman, gave him polish and connections, but gossip hinted she too had companions of her own. One Hollywood insider recalled a European gentleman who appeared in Maria's life every time Clark left town. They shared a comfort that didn't look new, the hostess added knowingly. Everything shifted when Gable crossed paths with actress Carole Lombard. With her, a vivacious talent close to his own age, he found something real, a union grounded in love, laughter, and equality instead of status or obligation. With Carole, he wasn't pretending anymore, noted his studio staffer. For once, he looked like a man who'd stopped acting, even off-camera.
Gary Cooper, the quiet embodiment of American virtue, carried integrity and decency into every role he played. Honesty, strength, and moral courage defined his screen image. But behind that upright persona, Cooper's 28-year marriage to socialite Veronica Rocky Balfe operated on terms few outsiders would have guessed. It was an elegant understanding between two worldly people. Keep appearances pristine and avoid public scandal. His numerous affairs, with Grace Kelly, Patricia Neal, and Ingrid Bergman, among others, were open secrets within Hollywood's inner circles. What the public never knew was that Rocky eventually followed suit, discreetly balancing the scales in her own refined way. Rocky wasn't blind, said a close confidant. In her world, marriages like theirs were built on privacy, not purity. Her quiet response came after years of acceptance, when it became clear that Cooper's wandering eye would never rest. She never fought or made ultimatums, noted a friend. She simply found companionship with men of her own class, intelligent, reserved, and far from the Hollywood chaos. Yet, despite their unconventional arrangement, Cooper and Rocky's connection endured. They raised their daughter together, maintained their public image flawlessly, and seemed genuinely at ease in each other's presence. You could feel a private understanding between them, like a silent promise no one else could break. Only once did that balance falter, during Cooper's passionate affair with Patricia Neal, which threatened to unravel their carefully crafted peace. For the first time, Rocky took a stand. Flings were one thing, but love was crossing the line, said a friend. Cooper eventually ended the affair and returned home. Whether it was affection, fear of scandal, or simple loyalty that drove him back, no one can say for certain, but the marriage held and their secret code remained unbroken. Mickey Rooney, the pint-sized dynamo who ruled 1930s and 40s cinema, lived a private life that was anything but picture-perfect. The box office darling of Andy Hardy fame struggled endlessly with love, enduring 8 marriages riddled with infidelity and emotional chaos. He could win over the world, but never his own wives. His first marriage to the stunning Ava Gardner in 1942 set a doomed precedent. Despite his fame and charm, Rooney, barely 5'2", often pursued women who eclipsed him in presence and beauty. Mickey chased Ava with the same intensity he brought to the screen, recalled an MGM staffer. Lavish gifts, endless attention, bold declarations, he smothered her with affection. But once the honeymoon glow faded, his energy scattered to gambling tables, nightlife, and other women. Gardner quickly saw through the illusion of stability and recognized the pattern that would haunt Rooney for life. A man too restless to stay faithful and too proud to admit he couldn't hold on to love. Few people realize that during the later years of her marriage, she reportedly began a secret romance with billionaire Howard Hughes. After learning about Mickey's other women, she gave in to Hughes's relentless charm, according to one Hollywood insider. Mickey was so wrapped up in his escapades that he only found out when someone at the studio whispered it to him. The cycle of Mickey straying, followed by his wives' revenge affairs, would haunt nearly every chapter of his love life. His second wife, Betty Jane Phillips, was said to have fallen for a musician after uncovering Rooney's repeated betrayals. His third, actress Martha Vickers, was rumored to have taken comfort in the arms of a director while still married to him. The irony was sharp. Though Mickey often sparked the first betrayal, he always played the victim when his wives returned the favor. Despite his own endless dalliances, he demanded total loyalty from them. At even the faintest suspicion of disloyalty, he would erupt in jealous fury, remembered one MGM insider. And this came from a man who could barely last a week without chasing another chorus girl. The hypocrisy was almost theatrical. By the time he reached his 5th marriage, his reputation spoke louder than any vow. Each new wife learned faster, often seeking her own escape within months. According to one old-timer, people around town even gambled on how soon the tabloids would report either Mickey or his latest bride stepping out with someone new. "You look like standing there in the moonlight. A picture I once saw in Florence." 6. Errol Flynn. When two cheaters share a mansion. Errol Flynn carved his name into Hollywood legend with his magnetic charm and fearless swagger. On-screen, he was the ultimate adventure hero. Off-screen, his first marriage to Lily DeMita was a tempest of egos and betrayals. Fidelity was the one frontier neither dared to explore. 2 unfaithful hearts under one glamorous roof and a wall of swords between them. Flynn's appetite for women was legendary, summed up by his infamous motto, "I like my whiskey old and my women young." But few recall that Lily DeMita matched his attitude toward romance without apology. She was already a worldly star when Flynn appeared in her orbit, recalled one Hollywood confidant.
From the start, no one believed monogamy was part of their vows, not even Flynn himself. Friends later said their marriage thrived on an unspoken deal. Both were free to wander, so long as the gossip didn't spill too loudly. What set them apart was how open they sometimes were about their affairs. Guests at their Mulholland Drive estate remembered parties where Errol flirted brazenly in one room, while Lily entertained admirers in another. There was something surreal about those nights, as if everyone was acting in a play without admitting it. The setup created a strange mix of glamour and unease that lingered through their home. The Flynns even kept separate bedrooms, linked by a shared sitting room. Household staff claimed those rooms often welcomed visitors who were more than just friends. They lived side by side, but on entirely different planets, one servant said. They mingled for appearances, but their private worlds never truly met. Even so, beneath all the infidelity and theatrics, their passion for each other never vanished. Their arguments were the stuff of legend, fierce, multilingual, and occasionally destructive. They didn't just fight, said one neighbor. They performed their fights. Moments later, they'd make up with equal fire. But by 1942, 6 years in, the chaos had consumed them both. Friends said the constant jealousy and drama finally drained two of Hollywood's most intense souls. What started as passion had become exhaustion. 7. William Holden, the golden boy who met his match. William Holden embodied Hollywood's perfect leading man, confident, handsome, and effortlessly magnetic. His work in Sunset Boulevard and The Bridge on the River Kwai cemented him as an icon of rugged charm. Yet behind that polished facade was a marriage to actress Brenda Marshall that defied Hollywood's fairy tale image. The industry's golden boy found his equal at home. Married from 1941 to 1971, they lasted far longer than anyone expected in show business. To the outside world, it looked like a model marriage. The truth was far more tangled. One longtime colleague revealed that Holden's affairs were an open secret. From Grace Kelly to Audrey Hepburn, his charisma left few immune. What's less discussed is how Brenda Marshall handled it. Instead of crumbling into the background, she quietly took control of her own life. Brenda was far sharper than people gave her credit for, said a family friend. After years of watching him stray, she made a choice: to keep her family intact while finding her own sense of freedom elsewhere. Friends close to the couple later admitted that Brenda developed quiet, meaningful connections outside her marriage. These bonds gave her the warmth and attention Holden's absence denied her. Unlike his public affairs, hers remained private, carefully shielded from scandal, a secret dignity the golden boy himself never managed to maintain. One neighbor remarked that Brenda often entertained a few refined companions whenever Bill was away filming. These weren't wild dalliances, but calm, cultivated friendships with thoughtful men who valued her deeply. Such an understanding brought an unconventional rhythm to their household. When Bill returned from his film shoots and private flings, he and Brenda effortlessly stepped back into their polished image as Hollywood's picture-perfect couple. Together, they nurtured their children, moved in elite circles, and upheld the illusion of marital bliss. One family insider described it as a mutual understanding they never needed to discuss. At home, Bill played the part of the devoted husband with ease. Brenda never mentioned his affairs, and he turned a blind eye to her quiet relationships. Despite how unusual their marriage appeared, those who knew them best believed their bond remained rooted in mutual affection and respect for most of their 3 decades together. Their partnership was built less on passion and more on pragmatism. Two perceptive individuals had simply discovered a way to meet each other's needs without dismantling their home life. "I never plan anything. Things just sort of happen naturally," Bill once said. 8. Tony Curtis, the charmer who finally met his match. Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh dazzled Hollywood as the picture-perfect golden couple of the 1950s. Young, stunning, and endlessly photogenic, they embodied the fantasy of celebrity romance. But beneath that flawless image simmered a far messier truth, where Curtis's relentless flirting eventually provoked a response few outsiders ever imagined. He was busy chasing admirers. She was busy making sure she wasn't just another one. Curtis's fame as a ladies' man was well known long before his 1951 wedding to Janet Leigh. Though their union began with genuine attraction, it never tamed his impulses. Tony was like a kid in a candy store, recalled one co-star. Marriage to him was more of a formality than a transformation. If anything, being half of Hollywood's golden duo only amplified his allure. His affairs weren't occasional slips, but a regular occurrence. From glamorous co-stars to behind-the-scenes crew, Curtis pursued women wherever he went, and with little secrecy. Everybody knew except the fans, who kept believing the fairy tale the magazine sold them, said one studio employee. What's less discussed is how Janet Leigh chose to respond to her husband's betrayals. Far from the wronged wife the public imagined, Leigh's reaction was strategic and quietly empowering. Janet was no pushover, a close friend confirmed. Once she realized Curtis wouldn't change, she began to form her own private attachments. Sources claimed these included genuine emotional ties to a few co-stars and possibly one director. Unlike Tony's impulsive flings, Janet's relationships were thoughtful, built on shared intellect and emotional understanding. She chose wisely, said a longtime collaborator, connecting with men who gave her the steadiness Tony never could. This balance created an unexpected tension in their marriage. Curtis's affairs were visible, yet superficial, while Janet's remained hidden, but deeply personal. Friends often pointed out the irony. His reckless escapades threatened less than her sincere connections. Their marriage eventually unraveled in 1962, after 11 years. Though the world blamed Tony's infidelity, insiders whispered that the real end came when Janet fell for someone in a way that exposed how hollow her marriage had become.
9. Robert Walker, the actor shattered by love. Robert Walker gained acclaim playing gentle, conflicted men before stunning audiences as the chilling Bruno Anthony in Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train. Yet his most heartbreaking role was off-screen, as the husband abandoned by his rising star wife, Jennifer Jones. She didn't conceal her affair. She left him openly for Hollywood titan David O. Selznick. Walker and Jones, then known as Phyllis Isley, had fallen in love as young drama students and married in 1939 before chasing dreams in Hollywood. For a while, Walker's career took off first, landing him a contract at MGM, while Jones struggled for recognition. That changed in 1941 when she met producer David O. Selznick, a meeting that would alter every part of her life. Selznick was instantly enchanted not only by her screen presence, but by Jones herself. He personally signed her under his management, renamed her Jennifer Jones, and began carefully shaping every detail of her image and career. From the outset, Selznick's involvement went far beyond professional interest, shared a former staff member. Everyone within his circle noticed his growing infatuation. As Selznick's guidance propelled Jones toward stardom, culminating in her Oscar-winning role in The Song of Bernadette, 1943, his private devotion deepened in equal measure. Their working partnership transformed into a love affair by 1942. Despite Jones still being married to Walker, no one made any effort to conceal it, recalled an MGM insider. Selznick's car arrived for her daily, his flowers filled her dressing room, and the pair were inseparable at public functions. It became Hollywood's most widely acknowledged secret romance. For Walker, the ordeal was a personal and professional nightmare. Bound to MGM by contract, he couldn't risk opposing Selznick, whose power in the industry was unmatched. Worse still, Selznick was elevating Jones's career, while a single complaint from Walker could end his own. Robert faced an impossible situation, explained a close friend. The man stealing his wife was also the one who controlled his livelihood. Forced to endure public humiliation, he maintained composure just to keep working. Walker's reaction laid bare his fragility and inner turmoil. Never emotionally steady, he turned increasingly to alcohol, a spiral that hastened his decline. His drinking led to erratic outbursts, career setbacks, and public embarrassments. By 1945, Jones filed for divorce, closing a marriage long broken before Selznick's arrival. She wed Selznick in 1949 after his own marriage ended. For Walker, the loss was devastating, not just of love, but of his two sons, who now lived primarily with their mother and Selznick. Despite this heartbreak, he briefly revived his career in the early 1950s with a standout performance in Strangers on a Train, 1951. Tragically, he died soon after, his life cut short by a fatal reaction to sedatives mixed with alcohol. He was only 32. George Sanders, the man whose voice dripped with wit and cynicism, built a career out of portraying worldly, sardonic characters untouched by sentiment. With his cultivated British tone and intellectual air, he embodied men too sharp to be deceived. Yet irony shadowed his life. Off-screen, Sanders married one of Hollywood's most famously unfaithful women, the Hungarian beauty Zaza Gabor. He lavished her with jewels. She shared her charm with nearly everyone else. Their 1949 marriage united two larger-than-life personalities, his detached intellect and her extravagant flair. Friends doubted their compatibility from the start, unable to fathom what the cerebral Sanders saw beyond her glamour. George was utterly captivated at first. She was everything he wasn't, emotional, spontaneous, and wild. But fascination quickly curdled into disillusionment as Gabor's appetite for male attention became impossible to ignore. Unlike other star wives who maintained appearances, Zaza flaunted her flirtations openly. She would tease men right in front of George, said a frequent dinner guest. It wasn't innocent banter, it was physical, whispered, and deliberate. Her boldness bordered on cruel amusement, as though she enjoyed watching her husband squirm. Rumors soon turned into public scandal. Gabor's numerous affairs allegedly included Dominican playboy Porfirio Rubirosa and even Frank Sinatra. She chased powerful, virile men, everything George wasn't, noted one Hollywood socialite. When Sanders protested, she brushed it off with laughter, treating his pain as trivial. What made his humiliation unbearable was its publicity. Gossip columns chronicled her escapades, and industry chatter mocked his predicament. Sanders, once the embodiment of cool authority, was now cast as the betrayed husband. For George, the exposure was the real wound. He might have endured her cheating, but not the ridicule that came with it. Torn between his pride and obsession, Sanders vacillated between icy detachment and desperate generosity. He bombarded her with lavish gifts, furs, jewels, even a Mercedes, in vain attempts to win her fidelity. When those failed, his wit turned cutting, his public remarks barbed with bitterness. This torment lasted 5 years before Sanders finally sought release through divorce in 1954. His filing cited extreme cruelty, a legal understatement for the public degradation he had endured from the woman who had once fascinated him beyond reason. After their split, Gabor moved on to 5 additional marriages, while Sanders wed 3 more times, including a short-lived and ill-fated marriage to Zaza's sister, Magda. That puzzling decision left many wondering if Sanders ever truly escaped the emotional tangle of his past with Zaza. His time with Gabor only seemed to intensify the world weariness that always shadowed his charm.
As the years went on, Sanders' outlook grew darker, especially toward love and matrimony, and he became known for his cutting remarks that mirrored the jaded men he played on film. Sadly, that same bitterness appeared to fuel the despair that ended his life in 1972. His haunting farewell, "Dear world, I am leaving because I am bored," captured the exhaustion of a man disillusioned by both Hollywood's illusions and his own romantic failures. During Hollywood's golden years, studios sold audiences a dream of perfect devotion and everlasting love. On-screen, fidelity looked effortless. Off-screen, it was often nowhere to be found. Many of the era's most admired leading men were living out dramas far darker than those they acted in. While fans adored them as the epitome of romance, their private lives often told a story of loneliness and betrayal. The chasm between their public image and their private pain remains one of Hollywood's greatest contradictions. Those very men who defined masculinity and passion in the movies were, in truth, grappling with infidelity and heartbreak they could never reveal. For some, like Bogart and Gable, heartbreak eventually gave way to authentic love later in life. But for others, Walker and Sanders among them, the wounds never healed, leaving behind legacies tinged with tragedy. And stars such as Cooper and Holden found ways to balance unconventional marriages that met both partners' desires while preserving the illusion of perfection the public demanded. In the end, these stories peel back the glamour to reveal the fragility of the people beneath it. The idols who set hearts racing on screen were, away from the spotlight, just as vulnerable to pain and disillusionment as anyone else. That may be the truest lesson Hollywood's golden era ever left behind. Even at the height of the studio system's control, love and human emotion remained untamable, beyond any director's command or publicist's spin. If you've enjoyed uncovering this side of Hollywood's past, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more stories from cinema's hidden history. Share your thoughts below about these revelations and let us know which classic stars you'd like to explore next. Until then, thank you for watching.